Hey, what's up, people? Today's question is, former actors at Disney parks, what's the weirdest thing that happened to you while you were in character? I was playing Goofy inside a restaurant, and I got swarmed alien-style by a horde of kids under 10. Unfortunately, while I was playing around with them, the inner hood below the mask slipped over my eyes, and I was completely blinded. We had assistants around whom we could signal for help by flapping our arms. But the kids had made it a game of attaching themselves Tarzan-like to both my arms, and to raise them, I would have had to lift 3-4 kids per arm. Dangerous, even if I'd been strong enough to do that. I found myself blind and completely rooted to the spot, unable to ask for help, and with nobody realizing that I was in trouble. I spent like a solid 15 minutes in that sort of limbo, reflecting on the life decisions that had taken me there, until the assistant came over and whispered, "Set is over, dude." And I finally managed to signal something was wrong. Story 4. I never was an actor, but when I was a kid at Disney World in the 70s, I watched Chip get into a fist fight with a young 20-something guy. The guy's girlfriend wanted him to do a picture with Chip and Dale, but he didn't want to. Chip grabbed him in a headlock, and his girlfriend snapped the photo. When Chip let go, the guy came up swinging. Dale had to jump in and break them up as Chip started swinging back. For a 12-year-old kid, it was awesome. Story 5. I was part of the Disney College program, and I have my own stories, but not as a character. My mom, on the other hand, was a character actor back in the day, 60s or 70s. They were testing a new headpiece for the 7 dwarf costumes in Disneyland, and my mom wore one of them out on a march with Snow White. As a dwarf, your head is inside their hat, their face is on their stomach, etc. Being Anaheim, it was really hot that summer day. And as they were going around following Snow White, a little kid saw my mom. Doc! He ran up to give him or her a hug. As he was hugging Doc, the plastic that made up the face started melting inward, and the child started screaming, "I killed Doc! I killed Doc!" in hysterics. Character handlers rushed my mom, Doc, off through one of the secret passages by pirates and got her out of the costume before the plastic could melt onto her. I always thought it was a fun story and was curious how much it screwed up that kid. Story 6. I was Chip and Dale in land, and some dad came up with his kids. I was doing my homework and having fun with them. When it came time for pictures, the dad came over to join us, and all was well until after the picture, when he asked for a hug, so I gave him one. He squeezed, pulled away, grabbed his kid's hands, smiled, and said, "I didn't know Dale was a girl under all that fur." I played it off at the time, but it made me really uncomfortable that he had actually squeezed hard enough to feel me under my costume. I decided to wear binders while I was in character so that no one else could ever feel my again through the suit. This was back in 2019. Story 7. My son is neurodivergent, and when he was 4, all he wanted was to meet Elsa and Baymax. Baymax made him sob, and then when he met Elsa, all he wanted to do was talk to her about everything. The handlers tried to move us along understandably as the line was long, but this woman literally took the handler's hand off my son and said, "No, this young man waited to speak to me, and he will stay and speak to me until he decides he is done." I cried. My son hugged her so hard because in that moment, a stranger saw him. Story 8. I wasn't a character, but a character adjacent. A guest came up to Elsa when she was brand new, wearing a shirt with his face screen printed on it. In the picture, he was wearing a crown. He refused to say anything to Anna and Elsa, so Elsa tried striking up a conversation. "I like your shirt. Are you a king? I'm a queen." He looks at her and blares, $59.99, peasant. Security later followed the guy and found him with a handle of vodka in the bathroom. Story 9. Other side of the encounter. My wife's got huge I mean some serious honkers. We were coming out of a water park, and she was wearing this white shirt with Pluto on it. This shirt was soaked through, so there was no hiding what was underneath. As we are walking, this costume Pluto walks up and starts pointing at my wife's like really excitedly, and jumping up and down. Wife and I are like, "Yep, that's you." not really thinking anything till we see this handler running over and screaming at Pluto to stop it. This lady apologizes profusely and smacks Pluto a few times while my wife and I just look on confused. You can barely make out Pluto from under the suit over and over, while this lady is in full "please don't sue" mode. Eventually, the lady walks us and the Pluto to some side area, saying sorry over and over, before the Pluto finally takes the head part off. It is another lady who again points at my wife's chest and says, "She's wearing a Pluto shirt." The handler lady's face drops, finally realizing what was going on, and she goes on a whole new apology tour about the entire situation. We got a coupon book and some free tickets out of the whole ordeal. Story 10. I work for a company that does mostly Disney characters for kids' birthdays and other events that people hire us for, and people are insane. During one of my most recent previous events, where I was Elsa for a very large local company employee party, I had a woman approach me, saying I should model, then following it up with offering me a job to work with her at a local strip club. I've had a lot of other wild things happen to me, everything from advances while I was a minor playing Sarah Sanderson, to kids trying to have one-on-one therapy about their deceased family with Princess Aurora. All that to say, I think Elsa being offered a job as a stripper is by far my funniest story yet. Story 11. My cousin's buddy played Tigger at Disney Anaheim like 15 years ago. They wouldn't let characters take costumes off premises and guaranteed they'd wash them daily. They didn't wash the costume, and he got scabies from it, presumably from another actor who also used the suit. It turned out they hadn't washed the suit in like 3 months. He sued Disney, threatened to go to the media, and they paid the dude like $400K to go away and be quiet. Story 12. I had a friend who worked there in the early 90s. She said when you go out in a big head costume, you don't come back until your shift is over, even though it was often 90-100 degrees in those things. Apparently, it wasn't unusual for someone to throw up in the costume. Then, of course, there was the whole reused underwear issue. I had another friend who used to wear her Snow White costume to parties. She got fired for that. Well, people, so much for today's last story. Remember that you can write me some of your funniest stories in the comments. I'm collecting the best ones to make a video with your best stories.